you help me welcome Melanie A. Melanie.
So, thank you guys. This is awesome, David. Thank you for studying that too. All right, so I'm from Indianapolis, a little bit further from just around the corner, Butler. Everybody's talking like, oh, we're just down the street. We're a little bit further than that. But I wanted to start this off. So I want you to get up off of your seats, get up, and I want you to listen to this music. That those of you that have been to the John Maxwell conferences, raise of hands, who's been there, who's experienced that, all right? Woo! Yeah. Here we go. So, all right. Now you can sing it. Come on. We're gonna change the world. That's right. All right. What do you think? Are you ready? Yes? We're going to change the world. All right, you can sit down. Thank you for participating. I figured at the end of the day, when David gave me the agenda, I was like, seriously, the last speaker? Everybody's going to be asleep. But I just want to tell you, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about my journey today. And I want you to figure it out inside of yourself, wherever you are in your company or your organization. It doesn't matter where you are, leading without authority, right? We heard that from Jeff. We've heard so many great messages today. And I'll tell you, as a John Maxwell person, he's written hundreds of books. And you pick one up and you go, it's the same thing. He's saying the same thing in a different way. So what I want you to understand is that you have value from the time you were born. You were designed to be leaders. Your path is already prescribed for you. You just have to step into it. So I'm going to take you through my journey, and I hope you can connect to it. I want to inspire you today to go back and make changes in your own organization and in your life that can really help you decide how you can change the world. All right? So here we go. And David, I think is there a clicker? Oh, right here. All right. So I thought this would be fun to start off. The emerging leader, right? The definition. Things that are emerging are just being born, or they're just reaching an adult state. The important thing is they're growing and developing. So when David said emerging leader inner circle, immediately you think of exploding, a flower blossoming, right? So many things that are happening and changing that you're unaware of. You don't know what's in the future, but you've got to rely on what you've been taught to this point. So when I think of the design of emerging leaders and everyday leaders, right? My journey started to become clear as I turned 50 years old. And I thought, who's impacted me at this point in my life? Who impacted me when they were 50? What did that look like? And it took me back to when I was a child. And so I'm going to take you through this journey a little bit. When I think about the acronym, right? ELIC, David puts it on everything. And I think about everyday leaders. Those same letters resonate with who we are and who we can become. And so E, enthusiastic, right? I was told one time at a job, you're so enthusiastic. You bring so much enthusiasm. And then he said, do you know that means touched by God? And I thought, well, aren't you? But it's always something that I've had within, right? From when I was born, I've had this inner spirit to want to be enthusiastic about life. So I've taken that into all the companies that I've worked with, and also helped me to become a leader in my organization, helped me to develop the things that I'm doing today. So enthusiasm is really critical. If you don't have it, if you're not excited about what you're doing, find it, right? Energy. How many times do we say, the job drains me. I can't do this with my family because I'm exhausted. I don't have enough energy for that. Anybody? You leave at the end of the week and you're like, I just got to get out of here. I want to go to my kid's soccer game. I want to go do something fun with my family. I want to go on vacation, but I don't have the energy to do it, right? So if we find that inner place that we can be secure, be enthusiastic about our life, we'll have energy for it. Environment. How many times do we think, if I could just change my environment, if I could take that one person out of the room, right? It's always, there's 11 people in the room. If you could just remove that one person from the conversation, we could get something done. It always happens. I was just experiencing this. I went in to volunteer at a church organization, and I thought, oh, they understand me. I speak their same language. I'm sitting there with what I call the 12 disciples because there were 12 people around the table. And it wasn't a nice conversation. They were interrogating me about why I've made so many changes in my life recently, and that I didn't fit the organization because I didn't have the same goals. And I thought, are you kidding me? If you only knew my story. But they weren't concerned about that. They wanted me to fit into what they desired, right? And so sometimes, even though we look at something and we say, that's where I'm supposed to be, we're either not ready for that or the environment isn't ready for us to be able to participate in that. So I want to encourage you, this is a big one, because sometimes we think, what's wrong? Like, why isn't something working? It's not syncing. And so sometimes you just have to make a change, a person change, or make the decision with your own agenda, right? Maybe you want to try a new job. It's okay. You don't have to stay in that same environment if you feel suffocated. You can grow into that. So let's go to L. We think about emerging leaders. The L of emerging leaders is learning. Now, there are many books that we've talked about. This is one of my favorites, Strengths Finder. Has anybody done this? Raise a hand. All right, so when you take this, you know it's a test online. You read the first 20 pages or so, and then you take this assessment. And it tells you what your top 5 strengths are. And you can pay for 34, but you've paid for the book, so you can take the first, learn the first 5. So my top one is learner. And learner just means, oh my gosh, now I understand why I like to absorb everything around me. You know, you're enthusiastic about life because you want to learn about it. You want to understand the process. And so learning is so important as a leader. If you don't want to understand somebody else's position, somebody else's destination, somebody else's proposal, then you're not going to get very far. Now, leaning in is what we learn at the John Maxwell team. When we first start, our president, Paul Martinelli, says, lean in, right? You can join, you can say, I want to be an emerging leader. But what are you doing yourself to lean into that opportunity? You can get the books, you can get the worksheets, you can attend the Zoom calls. You can mute yourself, Kimberly. You can hide your picture. But it's all about you participating, right? It's your buy-in. It's you owning the process. So it's so important. All right, now look, right? So look is part of what you have on your table. And so to be able to see the real answers, you have to be able to understand the opportunity. So I want you to all turn around. On the table, I've given you a sheet that Cindy passed out. And this is one of the exercises that I wanted to lead you through, which I think it's really effective. So you see the sheet of all the numbers. Grab your pens. And I'm going to give you 2 minutes on the countdown. Is everybody ready for the instructions? All right. So, and I took a screenshot of this because I wanted to make sure we had it here. All right. So what I want you to do in 2 minutes, I want you to look at this and try in numeric order, like 1 through 70. Circle those and try to put those in order as fast as you can. All right? And I'm going to give you in 3 seconds. Go. Numbers in order. How you doing?
It's there.
You've got about 5 seconds left. Okay, stop. How'd you do? 23, 21. Who got any more than that? How many did you get? No? Who got more than 23? How many did you get? 36? Wow! Congratulations. That's awesome. Anybody more than 36? No? All right. Now, what I want you to understand is somebody tell me, how difficult was that?
It was tough.
Why?
Probably because it's all scrambled and not in order, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Did you have a process to try to get to those numbers faster? Is there something that you've learned to help you? No?
I think I went like up, down, back and forth. I don't know if it helped or not.
Anybody else? No? You guys are like, throw this away. How about you? What was your process? We're picking on you today, aren't we?
I've done this. I know this.
Oh, okay. All right. All right, so how about this table?
I mean, if I saw a number like 1 or 2 later, I made sure I remembered where that one was.
Okay. All right, so now the second part of this exercise, I want you to look at your paper and you see those little marks on the sides? I want you to fold your papers. Yeah. All right. So now I want you to do the same exercise. And you can look at these ticks in the block, right? So now it's about focusing. It's about focusing. You've got a specific area that you're going to look at with these numbers, and I want to see how you do. If it's a little bit easier. It should be a little bit easier, right? So get ready. And yes. Right? All right. At one section, yes. So, are you ready?
No, you're doing it again. You're picking up where you left off, right?
Yes, we're starting over. Same numbers. All right? It's okay. I just want you to look at kind of the general numbers and how you can organize these in your brain now. Yes. One section. No, actually, thank you. Start with number 40. Yes, start with number 40. Thank you. Thank you, Kimberly. All right, so find 40. Right?
No.
And go.
I'm trying to like. Got it. Got it.
Stop it, you're freaking me out.
Oh, crap.
You guys are going to town now. Yeah. Got 10 seconds. Pressure. I know you can do it. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. No batteries. All right. Stop. How did you do? Better? Why? Yeah. Closer view?
That's some structure, better.
Okay. All right, so these groups over here said it was a lot easier, better structure. What about you guys? Better this time? As they were distraught the first time. Get this out of here. All right. So that just proves, so I gave you guys little magnifying glasses, right? So I want you to remember this because you want to inspect the things that you're looking at. Sometimes you can't see it fully. You have to look a lot closer. You have to have some organization, some structure to it so that you can find out the answer, right? So keep those as your little gifts, parting gifts, right? All right. So, all right, so let's go on with our download here for I. Influencers. We've talked about I's or influencers. Everybody said it. If you're going to be an everyday leader, you've got to influence people every single day. Every day. Not just when you think you feel like it. Because if you're in a bad mood and you go to the store, you go to Starbucks, your mood, right, resonates with everybody around you. So it's all those things that we teach, right? When you go to work, leave your baggage at home. And when you're with your friends, leave your baggage at home. Let's have fun, let's lift people, and let's influence them to do positive things. Some of that comes from imagination, right? And so I think about what I love is I love to play. And so I always use these, right? My emojis. So I want you to think of, I'm going to throw this. Whoever gets this, tell me of a time recently that you were sad and you had to influence someone. Not often. Someone else was sad and you had to influence them.
I'm sorry, I'm blanking.
It's okay. Anybody want to help? Yeah.
I remember a specific time when his mom had passed away, and both of us were youth leaders at the time, and it was just a very, very hard season for us. We wanted to step down. They said, no, you can't step down. And we had to, for the youth kids, and in that season, just really, continue to pour out, continue to give, of ourselves. And, we were sad and very sorrowful, and stick with it and continue on.
And that's the hardest time, right? Because inside it's so painful. But you really, everyone that you meet, you still are influencing them. And so it's part of your heart. I'm faith-based. I have tremendous faith. And I think every time you do something, no matter, look at Doug Smith. He came here today and talked to us. What great loss he's had this week and the pain in his life. And he came and he showed up and he delivered. That's what leaders do, right? Tremendous man. Tremendous man. All right, now I want you, here's the other one. Ooh. I like this one. All right, here it comes. To you. When were you really surprised about something? Yes.
When was I really surprised about something? What do you want to know? What it was?
Yeah, how you influence someone, maybe to keep a surprise, right? Or to share a surprise.
Using it more than stress ball.
That's okay too.
When was I surprised about something? And how did I use it to influence?
Mm-hmm.
Scott, didn't you just have a 50th birthday party? That was a surprise.
Ah. Exactly.
I thought we were
Right?
sorry.
No, but it's true. When we think about it, it is like, when did I do that? But you always do it. That's the point, right? You always have influence. And so whether you're keeping something, you're sharing something, we have to adjust how we feel about it,
I
right?
can give you an example.
Okay.
I was a little bit surprised about changing my position at work. But I went back to the group that I managed at that time. And I influenced them to the point where they were able to work, to run and govern themselves and keep moving forward, even though I won't be there.
Mm-hmm.
So they still contact me to this day,
Mm-hmm.
and I still try to help them.
Mm-hmm.
So,
And that's huge, right? Because as Jeff said, now you're not going to have any authority, but you had to influence them. So congratulations to you. That's, but it's thinking into it like we do influence people every single second. All right, so intuition. You meet that person for the first time. There was a great post on Facebook the other day, and it said, or I think it was actually LinkedIn, the guy that just flipped me off in the parking lot is now here for his interview. Don't you love that? How many times you're at a stoplight going, oh, come on, but holding yourself back, because in real life, you have no idea who you're going to influence next, right? Big lesson. I was like, karma, right? Karma. All right, so C is for communicating. Oh my gosh, we talk about this all the time. Kimberly talked to us about communicating. Teresa talked to us about communicating. Jeff talked to us about communicating. Doug, Bob, all of us, if we don't get this skill right, we might as well just shut down and go to a private island, because this is the key. Creativity. I have found in the most desperate times of my life of thinking, I don't have any value. Somebody told me at a job that I didn't have any value. Seriously? I go, do you know what I do? Obviously you don't. But I got really creative, right? I got really creative and I said, I do have a story and I need to tell it. And that's what kind of spawned the next phase of my life. So I learned consistency. From that, consistency was John Maxwell. He told me, start a mastermind, use this book. Here's the way to do it. Through creativity and consistency, helped me to learn what my journey was going to be about. But I had to be open to that communication, right? And then curiosity. I thought, well, what's in this book? I got to know now. I got to learn everything in here, and I got to teach people about it. So this has changed my life. This book helped me to start my podcast, right? Because it was all the things in that book that I learned that I thought, I really want to know, and I want to dig deeper into people's lives. I want to get creative with this. I want to figure out how this really does touch everybody that reads it. And so that's kind of where that spawned from. So I want you to think about, who influenced you when you were a child? Who influenced you when you were a child? For me, this has significance, right, Dave? All right, this is my favorite team. Do you know who this is? Anyone? The Blackhawks, yes. All right, so why is that my favorite team? So when I was 7 years old, my mother took me over, and she's here today. My mother took me over to an ice rink because she saw one of those little flyers. Now I'm old, but those little flyers that you got home from school, and it said hockey. She thought it was field hockey. But when we arrived as a single parent, she thought, oh, well, it's ice hockey. You don't know how to play ice hockey. But you know what? I did. And I played for 10 years on an all-boys league, right? Because we just said, why can't we fit in, right? Nobody said we couldn't. So that was an amazing time to go back and think about who influenced me and gave me that permission to do the things that I might have been afraid about. So the other picture here is my mom. And she's right back here in the back. But what a great story of thinking how she was when I was 7 years old. And then on a vacation that I took her to in California, right? So we're on vacation for 12 days in California. On the second day, she falls. She falls over one of those concrete barriers. Going up to the Dodger Stadium, she falls, breaks her wrist and her elbow. Opposite sides, right? So this is right after we had gone to the emergency clinic. And people said, why didn't you go home? She's like, because we committed. We committed to this trip. I'm not leaving. And so we had a blast, right? We did. We said, we got to go back to California. But I think about these two pictures mean the world to me because of what it meant when I was young and now what it means to me as an adult. And it never changes, right? You have to think about that connection. All right, so I think about the tools. I've got the red marker here, but I'm going to go a little bit over, David. So I think about tools. We're sailors. I think about, the lines that we need on our boat. I think about, sometimes I use this. But having the preparation, right? All you've done today is prepare for what you want to be in your life. And so you have to carry those things in your box. I feel like Carol Burnett, but I've always got things that I'm prepared to grab out and share. Because it is so important. You've got to remember the tools. Being a connector. Are you comparing yourself to others? All day long we've said, David, you don't need any more speakers. You've got them. You did it. I can never do what they did. They delivered value. After Teresa went, we all said, we're gone. That was it, right? So are you connecting to fit in? Do you believe that you have a purpose? Or are you just trying to emulate somebody else, right? Be yourself. All right, so here is just kind of the timeline for you. So in 2017, I went to meet at the John Maxwell Live course. Simon Sinek was there. It's one of the biggest influencers I think that I connect to. I love his inspiration about being happy and healthy in your workplace. And so I met him, Joe and I went to the National Association of Broadcasters this last year, and so the whole theme was tell your story, right? This keeps resonating. When you start focusing on something, it continues to show up in your life. Tell your story, tell your story, tell your story. I started my podcast 2 years ago, and my first guest is the last picture here on the far right is my friend that was surviving cancer. And that's how it started. I wanted to share a story. So I was 50 years old, and I said, I want to tell 50 stories. My birthday is the second week in January. I have 50 weeks left. It all started to make sense. So since then, it's been 2 years running, and I did not interview Mr. Rogers, but he influences me, right? He influenced me from when I was a kid. Again, 7 years old, thinking about today. So on the right, or on your right, is Lee Cockrell. How did he influence me? Well, he influences every single one of us because he's the retired VP from Walt Disney World. Now, Jeff said his employee, that was his goal, his dream to take his kids to Disney, right? Like most people, they win the Olympics. What are you going to do next? Going to go to Disney World, right? Lee Cockrell was the VP that influenced over 60,000 people for 17 years. And thinking about how he brought in emotional intelligence, how they brought in surveys to try to identify the kind of employees they wanted to hire, he created all that with Myers-Briggs for Disney. So these two people were super influential in creating the society and the culture that we connect to. So on LinkedIn, I connected to Lee Cockrell, and he was following me, and we were just, having a conversation, because that's what you do as connectors, right? How are you? I worked at Disney. I love how you've influenced the world. If you'd ever like to have me on your podcast, I go, well, of course. So we set it up. And he joined me, and it was the most amazing experience because I think about what would you want to ask, as Doug would say, John Maxwell, if he was in the room. And so I got so excited and so prepared of how am I going to talk to this influencer of over 60,000 people, right? He's the same person. He grew up the same way that we all did, except for I found out he had 5 different last names. He had a mother that sacrificed everything for his family. He just wanted to fit in. He wanted to add value to the world. So the things that he created weren't things that were already in place. He designed the world that he saw. And so when I think about emerging leaders, I think of Lee Cockrell. I think of Mr. Rogers, right? Right here in Pittsburgh. So these things, I took the things that Mr. Rogers and Lee Cockrell both really think about. And we think everyone is special. You never have wrong feelings, right? Love is sacred. Using your imagination, staying positive, looking for helpers, right? We've talked about that all day. Simple ways to have success is to be kind. These are so easy. These are all free. And, whoops. All right, listen. Don't avoid difficult subjects. Kimberly, you talked about that just last, right? It's important. We've got to address it. There's more than coming in first. Sometimes you have to be the supporter. Sometimes you have to be the leader, and sometimes you've got to be the follower. Embracing growth and change. And then imagining, right? Don't let things that are frightening to you be scary. Learn how to adjust to that. Learn how to accept that. All right? And, all right, take time to do a good job. There's another kind of superhero, and they both believe it's about influencing children, right? Go back to your story. Who do you wish you could have been influenced by when you were little that could have changed your life? Be that person. Don't let differences divide people. Here, we've talked about that all day. Let's come together and let's connect. Teach a child to love books. We've talked about that. Let's read. Let's be more avid readers in the world. Don't forget what really matters, and most of all, be yourself, right? That comes from within. My uncle always says that. It comes from within. You have to shine. You have to be that person. So I was going to close on something different, but because of time, I want to close with this video. And I want you to understand the inspiration behind this, because when you think of mentorship, right, who had an opportunity in your life to do just what this video shows us?
I have a lot of memories from when I was a child. One that's always stuck out to me, though, was when I was about 10 years old and I was in school and I struggled. And I didn't struggle with English, math, or science. I struggled holding still. And I would try to listen and focus and process ideas, but I couldn't help myself. And to be honest, I would sit there and then I would just start tapping. And the students in the class would look at me and they'd say, "Hey, stop tapping." A lot of the time, I didn't even realize I was doing it. And then eventually even the teachers got after me and they would yell at me and they'd say, "Clint, you have to stop tapping." It got so bad that I got sent to the principal's office for tapping. And he said to me, "Okay, maybe when you go back to class, just try sitting on your hands." And so I did. I went back to class, and when I felt myself starting to tap, I did this. I sat on my hands. And that worked for about 5 seconds. One time I was tapping in class, and my teacher, Mr. Jensen, he looked at me and he yelled. And he said, "Clint, stay after class." And I thought to myself, this is it. I am done. Now, I've always been the type of person that believes that a single moment in time can change a person's life. And this was one of those moments for me, and I will never forget it. And so I was sitting there with Mr. Jensen and an empty classroom. And he walked past me and he sat next to his desk and he said, "Clint, come here. I want to talk to you." And as he looked me right in the eye, he said, "Now, I need you to know something. You're not in trouble. But I do have just one question that I have to ask you." And he asked, he said, "Have you ever thought about playing the drums?" And in that moment, Mr. Jensen, he leaned back and he opened the top drawer of his desk. And he reached in and he pulled out my very first pair of drumsticks. And he held them in his hands and he looked at me and he said, "Hey, Clint, you're not a problem. I think you're a drummer." And from that moment on, I've never put those sticks down. I've toured, recorded, and played drums all over the world. My whole college education was paid for with drumsticks in my hand. Just because of a single moment in time when somebody believed in me. And he saw something in me that I didn't even see within myself. And from that moment, I learned that there's a difference between being the best in the world and being the best for the world.
Pretty cool, huh? What do you think? Do you have it in you? Are you ready to step in and be a mentor, learn from people around you, influence, communicate, every day show up and influence someone around you? You never know when that opportunity is going to arise. So I just want to challenge you. You can change everything, every opportunity that you have today, just by thinking about your own story and how you can connect to the world. That's all I have. Thank you.